We'll call our meeting to order. We'll start with a moment of reflection for the deaths in the area in the past month. There was Alvin Guitar, Ross Levine of Baldoon, Donald Lapointe of Doyleville. Also, I'd like to tonight add the sympathy of council to Norman Pelche, Mayor of Dalhousie, and the loss of his son over the weekend. And I ask we all have a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Okay, next is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Lyndon?
Sorry, yes, I'd like to remove the MOU with the RCMP. We'll have to table that until the next meeting in January. We didn't have an opportunity to have legal review that to the extent that we wanted to.
Okay, we'll remove that.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to retract the items that I have there because I see that CAO Lee has included them in his entries a little later on in the meeting.
Okay, so you're removing everything?
Right.
Okay, we'll remove that. Anything else?
I was going to add the letter that we had gotten about speed limits around the town site and that sort of thing, but maybe we could address it in with Sandon's comments.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
I have one, Mayor. I know it's early days in this announcement, but I think we'd be remiss as a council if we didn't at least acknowledge, and I hope we go beyond that and have a bit of a robust discussion on the Glencore announcement in terms of the decommissioning. So I'd like to see that added so we can talk about that a bit.
Okay, so you can add that under yours, Paul.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that the agenda be adopted as amended.
I'll second.
Questions? On the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Motion carried. Anyone with a conflict of interest in the agenda? If not, we'll move on to the adoption of the minutes that have been presented. So we need motion 21-169, a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move that the minutes of the special meeting of November 2nd, 2020, the Committee of the Whole Council meeting November 2nd, 2020, and the regular meeting of November 16th, 2020 be adopted as presented.
I'll second it.
Questions? On the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Motion carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Okay, if not, we'll move on down to statements by members of council. Councillor Arsenault.
Thank you. Wanted to start, I'll add the one that was added tonight. I'll put that as the fourth one. I'll move the Christmas acknowledgements down to the last. But wanted to start with some of the Jacket River School announcements or some of the issues, topics coming from the school. And I wanted to start with the crosswalk. And I wanted to start with it and then maybe pass it over to CAO Lee. Is that okay? So you can add. So anyway, a little bit of background to this latest effort, because this is not the first effort to try and bring back a crosswalk in front of Jacket River School. The other efforts have failed. I only have knowledge of one, but I understand that there are others. And so in late October, I received a couple of calls from people. I'm not sure if it was planned that they would call at the same time, but like almost one after the other. I received a couple of calls from people asking me if we would help, if council would help, and if I would sort of initiate trying to get this issue back on the table and successfully resolved. And I said that I would. Shortly after, the week after, I called CAO Lee and told him that I would like to try and get this successfully completed this time. Asked him for his help. He said that he would. And then I asked him if it would be okay if I initiated trying to get in touch with some of the major shareholders to try and help push this along. Because I felt, when I reflected upon some of the reasons that it may have failed in the past, that was one, that maybe some of the major shareholders hadn't been included in trying to support this or bring it forward. So I did that. I got in touch with Superintendent Mark Donovan, and you see the letter. The letter's been included in tonight's agenda. I was going to read it, but we have a lot on the table, so I'm not going to do that. You read it and see that his support, some of the arguments that he made, he penned a terrific letter. Not exactly sure who this has been sent to, but he was asked to send it to some government departments that might help us, including DTI. Trevor Glazier, the principal of Jacket River School, he supports it. And then once we were able to get them on board, I passed it over to CAO Lee again. And my understanding is that he was then going to have a meeting with a DTI representative to, bring it to their attention again, to see if we could get it started again. And then that sort of coincided with the government. My understanding is the government has sort of given municipalities more leeway in taking on projects such as this. And so it came together at that point, around the end of November. So I'll pass it now to CAO Lee to sort of let us know where it's gone from that point.
Sure, no problem. So yeah, that was all pretty accurate. That was kind of how things unfolded. And I know that we have a couple items on the agenda that sort of fall under this umbrella. So I'll touch on it briefly, but I think that we're probably going to have more discussion on this later on. But essentially, yes, the meeting with DTI did transpire. As you mentioned, that letter was submitted, which gave us a little bit more authority over the provincial roads, such as Route 134. Something that we've that was made clear by DTI is that for any changes that we're looking to make, we will need to have a study done on it. And I think that might have been where things sort of got hung up in the past. I'm not familiar with where the crosswalk was, how that transpired previously. But I do know with this one, essentially what DTI is saying is that we can keep them sort of abreast of the changes that we're looking to make. They did request if we are looking to do a significant change. For instance, later on the agenda, we do have some speed limit changes on Route 134. That's something that they would consider a pretty significant change. It's sort of wide ranging. It covers the entire municipality. They did ask that if that was the intent, if we were going to make that type of change, that they are notified a little bit ahead of time so that they're aware of it. But essentially, really what they described was we have a study done, provided that study supports what it is that we wanted to do, then they have no issue with us making the change. So really, it comes down to the study. Now, so council is aware, what I have been able to sort of find out is that most municipal engineers, civil engineers have the capability of doing this. Roy Consultants does a lot of work for us, and when that letter was issued out, they actually reached out to us and let us know, hey, if there's anything that you want to do, we have the capability of doing it. We can do those studies for you. So I do know that Roy Consultants can do it. If there's other engineering firms we want to look into, if there's other, I think that I did put it out to council, if there's other consulting agencies that we want to include. But really, Paul, I think the next step for in the process for this is simply having a study done to evaluate, and I can't speak to the nuances of what it would entail, but I'm assuming some sort of foot traffic versus vehicle traffic, and then once that study is complete, if it supports what it is that we want to do, then it's as easy as sending that over to DTI for their records and implementing that change.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor, if I could. Crosswalks come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. The simplest ones are just stripes across the road and a sign that's an indication. The more complex ones are flashing lights on the side and overhead, so I'm not sure if there's a specific one that's being targeted or, and I know that they will come with varying costs as well. I'm just kind of curious as to if there's one that's preferred over another, measuring all things.
Well, I think what we do is have the study, and in the study, it should give us some indication of what would be considered best for a crosswalk there. At least that was what, the kind of information that I got from Daniel LeBlanc with DTI, that the study usually would say, you know, these are your options sort of thing, and then it's up to council to pick one and go to DTI and say, this is what we want to do.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to speak to it a little bit more during my section, but I think it begs the question here. Is it possible to kind of get the list of changes or alterations to our 134, our roads system that, you know, all of them together? Because we're talking, my motion's on the speed limit, this is a crosswalk. Would it not make sense to get whoever consultancy would do all this in one swoop, submit one report to DTI, and then make all the changes, you know, at our leisure after that?
Yeah, that would be the way to go, and then, like, we look at the crosswalk, the speed limits, truck traffic as well on Jacket River Drive, and that should be all in one study, and because that, actually, it's what we want to do within the village, and then we could do it all at once, rather than have to have 3 or 4 different studies and continue on, so that would be the route to take, for sure.
Okay, so just a couple of other notes from the school. First, they had their virtual Christmas last week presentation. Like most things in the COVID reality, it was done differently. There wasn't a live audience, but it was recorded. And if you go to the Jacket River School Facebook, there's a link there for the YouTube. You can watch it. It's very well done. The kids are great as always. And not every school in the province did this. So for them to take that initiative, they did it with their Remembrance program, which was also very, very good. So anyway, just to let you know that you can, the Christmas concert did go on a little bit differently, but if you go to their Facebook page and go to the YouTube link, you can watch it. And the third one is the Lady Tigers. There's a little bit of a dynasty in the making with the Lady Tigers. Last year, they surprised everybody by winning the North Shore Middle School banner. And this year, they've already started out 3-0. They beat Superior, which is going to be their... That I would say that's probably going to be their biggest competition. But their score, added up their score. This is how many the point totals for and against in the 3 games this year. So far, the Lady Tigers have scored 179 points with only 59 given up. So they're for real, and they're a great team, and they're very enthusiastic. In the gym, during gym period, they're practicing all the time. It's great to see because the program was, starting to, it wasn't starting to diminish, but it wasn't what it was back in the heyday, and now it's sort of back. And the great thing is the boys program is about to make a comeback too, because they have some kids on the elementary side, some boys on the elementary side that are athletes who love the game of basketball. So that's going to come back, and if our volleyball program comes back like it should, one of the hallmarks of a healthy school is a healthy sports program. And it looks like our sports program is on its way back. And I just want to acknowledge the Lady Tigers coaches and managers because they do a fantastic job. Lois McAllister, Cynthia Robinson, Amber Guitar, Bridget Robinson, Kathy Daly is a manager, and their advisor, Alan Hayes. So they have a fantastic group, great team. They represent the school well, and they represent the community very well. So just give you an update on that.
Yeah, they're great. I notice a lot of change in the Jack River School. We see a lot more posts with the kids and stuff. It's amazing. It's nice to see that. It's certainly different now. And the concert was really cute. The kids did well. And yes, I heard a lot about the basketball team, and they're doing great too. My daughter was actually on that team way back in the day. And it's certainly nice to see our kids being active and having fun.
And maybe if we continue to invest and promote our growth programs, the success of the Jack River School basketball team will go on into perpetuity.
So the second one was the NB News, CBC New Brunswick News article from December 10th. I'm not sure how many on council had an opportunity to read that article. It was a very interesting article, and I'm not sure if it was purposely done, but it seemed to try and make a connection between a couple of things, but not quite make that connection directly. I'm not sure if it's purposeful, but I'll introduce those two this evening. I had a chance, when I looked at the article, there was a section concerning Beldoon that I wrote down because I thought it's extremely important. It says a lot, and I'm not sure, we can overlook it. I think we need to discuss it. But let me tell you what I wrote down. First of all, the title was interesting. The title was called Small Modular Nuclear Reactors. And the subtitle was 20-year forecast doesn't include SMRs, small modular nuclear reactors, despite utility wanting them within the decade. So right off the top, it acknowledges that there's been some discussion within the hierarchy, whether it's the executive or whether it's the top echelon of the provincial government, but obviously there's been some discussion about these small modular nuclear reactors. And the small paragraph that caught my attention was this one. The government's climate plan requires coal to be phased out as a source of electricity by 2030. The report, and I'm assuming by the report they mean the document within which this article was created and referred to, says imported electricity and renewable would not be enough to replace Beldoon's capacity. And converting the plant to burn natural gas would be costly. Okay, so what exactly does that mean? What do we know about what that means? I mean, when I looked at it, I thought, at first I thought, this is quite positive because it sounds like they're going to try and do everything they can to maintain the plant until 2030. Now, it's not wonderful that that's only a 10-year lifespan, but at least it gives the village some time to acclimatize itself to the fact that 2030 might be the end point. But then as you go further into the article, it seems to imply that there may be an option in terms of these small modular nuclear reactors for Beldoon, but not quite saying directly that that's the reality. And I'm wondering, what does that really tell us? If anybody looked at that article and read that article, what do we actually know about the future of our generating station. And I'm just wondering if CAO Lee or Mayor Noel could shed any light on that.
I'll just go real briefly, and I might be kind of overstepping here because Mayor Noel might have more information. But from an administrative point of view, I really don't have anything. And to be honest with you, it kind of concerns me a little bit. And I wonder if maybe there could be a directive issued to staff. And we can have the conversation about it. I don't think that it would be a far stretch to ask NB Power to maybe connect with council. If there's some high level plans, or if there's, this has been discussed for a long time. And quite frankly, if NB Power wasn't in this municipality, it would be absolutely detrimental. I don't know how that looks for Beldoon in 2025 or 2030 if there is no NB Power and there is that loss of tax revenue. So I might suggest that from myself personally, I cannot contribute at all to this because I really don't know anything to it. But I don't think that it's a far reach to maybe request an hour or so of Mr. Cronkite or one of his executive staff that might be able to outline their higher level plans.
Yeah, I'll just add to that there has been some conversations going on with NB Power and about NB Power, but I think, the NB Power is looking at extending the life of this power plant. It's a very important plant for the province of New Brunswick. It keeps the rates stable, and in order to do that, anything that they do go, and if they look at gas or anything else, they got to look at what cost is associated with that, because you can't do it at any price. But I think, if council's interested, we could certainly have someone from NB Power come in and meet with council, or we could have a virtual meeting. It would be a virtual meeting if we have it now, and let us know, some of the things they're doing. I know some of the projects that they are working on, but I'm, not at liberty to release those at this time, but maybe someone from NB Power could give us a better update, so we can let Landon set that up and maybe set up a virtual meeting in the new year.
And just another point, Mr. Mayor, in a very recent article, NB Power, I think it might have been as recent as last week, NB Power actually floated the concept of prolonging the life of NB Power here in Beldoon, the Beldoon generating station, to 2040, and still saying that that will still keep them within the confines of the federal carbon reduction programs. I couldn't quite make the dots connect, but it's a pretty complicated equation that they use to achieve that and support that argument. I'm still somewhat bewildered what the future plans are for the generating station here, especially in light of the fact that they turned down an opportunity to have it sold to a local would-be entity, and they obviously had longer term plans for it than 2030. I still think maybe they missed the best opportunity, although I don't know the details of what the arrangements would have been with Maritime Iron, but I would like to have seen something like that come to fruition. And I'm not even sure if we should be celebrating potentially 2040, because simply from an economic perspective, from a carbon perspective, it's probably not a good thing, but from an economic perspective, especially in a place like Beldoon, where we're trying to work on growth strategies and at least maintain what we have, and recognizing that at some point we've got to make the turn to a greener economy. I still thought that the 2040 prospect was probably more positive than negative.
And there's one small point I want to address too, and it's, I'm not sure I really want to get into something big with this, but I would say anytime you're talking about nuclear, you always, and you know how Beldoon in the past, we've always confronted this, right? We've confronted this. Well, the afternoon that I read this, I got a call from someone who said, "You're not building a nuclear reactor in Beldoon." I said, "I haven't even seen the article yet. I have no idea what you're talking about." So there's nothing I could say. But I would say that being able, if there's whatever the plans are for the province and by the province for Beldoon, that information is given as we go along so that there are no surprises and that there's buy-in from the community. I think that that's extremely important, whatever it is. I would just say that that's an important facet of this, right? It's 2030s, I mean, it's right there, man, 2030, right?
I agree with Paul here, like that it's good to keep the public aware, but I also know how NB Power plans a lot and nothing comes out until it's decided. And I think the reason why they're saying that the plant is going to be open till 2040 is because they're having their summer shutdowns. So that means they're not running, they're doing their maintenance work and all that. And the plant was shut down, as you all know, for a period of time this summer. And that will extend the life of the plant, just doing that yearly.
Well, that was another question, and I'll ask you, and I'll ask Mayor Noel and COE, and anyone else on council if they think, that's sort of what I was thinking too. Do you think that that's probably where they're going with this?
Yes,
Oh,
I
no?
do.
Okay.
But like I said, no. Yes, that's where it's going. That's the way they want to extend the plant because.
Yeah.
And like you say, like, they're shutting down, they're saving the plant, they're maintaining the plant, and they're not putting out carbon out in the air, so.
So, I've read that one before. I think an important thing you can respond to whomever called you about the nuclear reactor is, one, it's not a traditional nuclear reactor, and two, it has just as much viability as the hydrogen fuel cell pitch that they went down last year. NB Power doesn't have a great track record of innovating new technology into the scope. What I would be concerned with is I don't think the federal government's going to let NB Power play that game of, oh, we're only operating half the year, so we get twice the time. They've pretty much drawn a line in the sand that says 2030 is the date when all coal-fired generating stations in Canada need to be either shut down or operating on some alternative fuel source. As most people know, I grew up in Alberta, lots of coal power there for a while, and when the NDP came in, they switched them all over to natural gas. It's cheap. It's not that bad of a, in terms of scale, it isn't that bad of a conversion. That would be what I would be pursuing if we wanted to save that plant in its current state, because it's actually a proven technology. But with the Atlantic Loop spending coming in and tidal energy coming out of St. John and different options down there, and LaPro actually working consistently for the first little time, it should be definitely on this council and any future council's radar every time if it goes more than 2 months without checking on what the status is for the conversion or the lifespan of the Beldoon generating station. That's probably too long, because I can't see if another good power source comes online in southern New Brunswick, especially in the Fundy area, that could replace the coal-fired power station. I do not foresee NB Power making the investment to save this one.
And just one final note on that, and that's why the last sentence of that paragraph was probably the most concerning, right? Converting the plant to burn natural gas would be costly. And you're just wondering, was that, anyway, I'll just leave it at that. It's a very concerning way to end an article. But we'll see. We don't know. We'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. Okay, so the next one, and thanks, council. That was a good discussion on that. I think we need to have that. My next one's a little bit lighter. It's concerning the tennis court conversion. During the budget discussions of 2018, we had talked about, specifically I remember talking about the tennis court in Jacket River and about perhaps some things that we could do with that. And I think at that time we were talking about a walking area, if I remember correctly. So I have another suggestion, and it's a conversion. Municipalities in the area seem to be converting some of their tennis courts to pickleball courts. It's happening in Bathurst. I believe it's happening in Hamilton. We still have a great tennis league in Péterichet and in Bathurst, but some of the extra courts are being converted to pickleball, and I would just suggest that perhaps we think about doing that. Pickleball it's a sport that's picking up. I mean, it's great because of the fact that it's attracted to seniors, and of course, we're an older population. We even, we have 10 or 12 hardcore pickleball players in Beldoon, and I would just think that tennis court, as much as I love it, there's nobody who plays on it. It's a wasted asset, and it wouldn't cost that much to convert to pickleball. So I don't think we have to interfere with the basketball courts. I think one pickleball court at this point would do. But if we could consider that, that would be a great conversion, I think. And the fourth one, yes, was just the acknowledgement about the message this week, or the announcement this week concerning the decommissioning. The first I heard of it last night, to be honest with you, was at hockey. Someone mentioned to me in the dressing room and said, "Did you hear about?" And it's the first time I heard it. And of course, immediately my ears perked up. I thought that's extremely interesting. But today, I've heard it 3 or 4 times. So I'm just wondering my knowledge of it right now is nil. But if there's anyone in council here who can tell me more about what this entails, what it means. And I know we may not be able to get this far, but what responsibility then does Glencore have? And then that one's down the road a bit. I can understand that. But at least if we can have some discussion, have some acknowledgement about what exactly this means, I think that would be important to some of the people who are listening to us tonight.
Okay, on that, Paul, I think what brought this to, there was a mail out that went out from Glencore this week. So everybody got a little card in the mail, and their intent was to have open house type meetings. Because they can't do that with COVID, they've done virtual ones online. So that card that went out gives people an address to go. They can go in there, they can look at what's being done, what the timelines are, everything that's going to happen, what should happen, what they have to do, what their responsibilities are, and and they can ask any questions or give any comments that they want on that site for now, because they can't have virtual meetings. And that's done in conjunction with the Department of Environment.
Are we talking about buildings, a number of buildings being torn down or taken away, or?
Everything is in there on that site. Yeah,
On
if you
that
go to that site, you'll see exactly what their intentions are, what the timelines are, what they have to do to clean up. Everything is on their site.
And Mr. Mayor, I believe it also includes an area that while people can visit the sites, there's also an opportunity to offer comments if they have concerns with respect to the decommissioning part, with respect to the environmental impact assessment of the decommissioning, although the deadline for submission is December 31st, which is, I don't know if that's conveniently December 31st or just accidentally December 31st, but that's the timeline or the deadline that they've provided at this point.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Just one last thing I would say to that, and I'm not even sure it's related or connected, but just something I thought about today. When they left in Dalhousie in 2008, when they finished in Dalhousie in 2008, it took years for that to get ultimately resolved. I believe I would be correct in saying that. Same thing happened in Bathurst, where it took years for it to get resolved. I believe I'm correct in saying that. If I'm not, then I apologize, but I believe that that's the case. So I just hope that this is, apparently a lot tidier. I would hope that that would be the case.
I think one of the things we need to keep in mind is that Glencore does not sell the whole decommissioning project to somebody, which includes the property after it's finished, because that's where a lot of problems occurred. And they left a mess in Bathurst. The ownership of the Dalhousie property is still, well, it's still somewhat in question, but there's a big valuable piece of property that's just remaining undeveloped. And I think that's one thing that we all need to make sure it doesn't happen here at Glencore.
Oh, sorry, the last one was just, I wanted to wish everyone in Beldoon a happy Christmas and a much better 2021, or a great 2021. But I also want to extend that to council and to the administration and to staff and to our regular workers and our seasonal workers. They all do a fantastic job. And I will add one thing. I've never in any year received more compliments about the park, the Jacket River Park. I don't know whose idea it was to do that. I'm going to assume that Clerk Treasurer Cormier probably had a pretty good. No, okay. Well, whomever decided. Do you know who?
Way back in the day, when Councillor Emmy Flanagan was on council at that time, that Christmas in the Park was kind of her baby that she started with. And then it just kind of snowballed from there, and then council always made a budget where we could buy the decorations and do it. But initially, it was her baby that she ran with and had a passion for. So.
Well, I'm telling you, you know what that is? It's a wonder, that park. It's so beautiful that it's remarkable. And I hope we never, ever, ever try to commercialize it. It's perfect.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay,
Just a couple
Councillor
of
Carmichael.
comments. We'll start with the councillor.
Yes, like Paul, I want to wish everyone a happy Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Then let's hope 2021 is a brighter year. And also the park, I think we're noticing it more this year because of COVID, because I think you don't always see what's in your backyard, because they've been doing a great job for years. And I've walked by Cameron and Mark and Earl, I don't know how many times this year doing that, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they were untangling lights. I'm thinking, oh, you got more patience than I have. But they have the patience and the job is well done, and I don't know, the music outside is great too, so, and I'm glad to see that our village and the people in it is enjoying it this year.
And I would like to reiterate Councillor Arsenault's comments as well, that except that for a few small exceptions of the evil elves that have taken root in the park, it's lucky that most of them stay dark at night, so we don't have to put up with seeing them. But beyond that, everything else is they've done a wonderful job, and even managed to put lights on that tree again. I thought maybe the tree wasn't going to get the lights this year, but the other night I noticed they were on, which even helps more to forget about those little creatures that are growing in the park.
Okay, Councillor Carmichael.
I just want to move that the 2021 budget information session be held on January 18th at 6 o'clock, at 6 p.m. prior to the regular meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Motion carried. Okay, Councillor Dyvenborden, you took your things out. So, Councillor Killorn.
Yep. Okay, so I have several items on the agenda tonight, and I will do my best to proceed through them quickly. My first motion is just a directive. I know we spoke a little bit about it earlier. Obviously, we now know the steps that are, that need to be undertaken. But following up to what Mayor Noel and CAO Lee had mentioned during the committee of the whole, I would like to move that the Village of Beldoon authorize the administrative staff to take all necessary steps, which would be also hiring, I guess, for the study, along with the Department of Transportation and, steps along with the Department of Transport and Infrastructure to reduce the speed limit on Highway 134 between Jackie River Drive to the Beldoon Light Industrial Park, I probably wrote part, to 60 kilometers per hour.
I'll second that.
Okay, questions?
Mr. Mayor, I've done a few trial runs to see what it's like to do at 60 kilometers an hour. It's a hard habit to get used to. But at the same time, when I see the turn that's just to the west of where I live right now, especially after dark, that just becomes a ramp. And so it's going to be even harder for those people who consider it a ramp to make the adjustment to 60. So, well, after it was brought up, after the first, I think at our last meeting, I thought about it quite a while, and while it would be a little bit of an inconvenience, I've come to the conclusion that the pros probably far outweigh the cons, and especially since we have had absolutely no long-term success with trying to keep heavy traffic off of the roads, and I still see those groups of bicycles competing with the log trucks in the summertime, and I thought, well, I guess that's the only argument I need to have in order to support what Councillor Killorn's ambitions are.
Okay, and I think we should include, the scope of the other things that need to be done in that motion as well. So everybody get their ideas to Landon, but this motion will suffice to get us started, and we can look at the whole gamut. Any other question? Tracy?
I was just going to say the same thing about adding the other changes that we were looking at. But one of the other things that I would like to look at, and I know it's been looked at in a study before, and I know that we're hoping that speed limit reduction will help, but also where that passing lane is as you're coming around the Curry turn, coming up to the town site. I'd like to see that looked at as well.
Yeah, that was, as well, was in the conversation
Yeah.
that we had with DTI.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
We have a number of things that we went over with them.
Okay.
So we'll have the study, we have to have a study done, so we'll have the study done on the whole gamut of them, and then it'll come back to council. And from there, we decide what we want to do and, what we don't want to do. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one question to Councillor Killorn. So this study, would it also include, and I wasn't here on the last meeting, so it may have been discussed and I may not be aware of it, but would it also include economic impact? Or is this strictly a matter of safety?
It looks at that to a certain degree, but not a lot. It's more of a safety issue than economic impacts of what it would be. The only thing that we could see in this was it will reduce the truck traffic. It won't reduce any other traffic, and that's what we're trying to do anyways, reduce the truck traffic traveling through the village.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and just to be clear on the process, how this flowed out, tonight was the first we heard about the study aspect of that. I would say on the concept, if the distance is still shorter, I don't have much of a problem if trucks want to drive 60 kilometers on the road through 134 from Jackie River Drive to the industrial park. I think the bigger problem we have is that at 80, we encounter trucks going 95, 105, 110, which is where the real, it's several tons of truck coming down the road. Doesn't matter if it's coming at 60 or 80, you're not going to win that fight. But I think some speed provisions, if they still choose to utilize the road, there's not much we can do about that as long as they adhere to the speed limits, but I think we'll see a lot fewer close calls, last-minute prayers on the Belledune River Bridge, right, Councillor Carmichael? And anyway, I've heard the argument before about economic impact of what those truckers bring into our local stores, and I'll be honest, it's either inflated or just straight up BS. For the handful of people that might stop, I mean, that's not there. I know that there's some concern about losing any business nowadays, but geez, it only takes one. I'm shocked that somebody hasn't been hit already. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and the reasoning that the study wasn't discussed before is we only met with DTI after our COW meeting. We were supposed to meet that morning with them, but they canceled, and we had it the Friday after. So we only got that information after the meeting. So that's one of the reasons it didn't come to the meeting.
Just
Go ahead, Bob.
Just one last thing. If you remember, a couple of times, I think I brought to the table, and I know Ronnie's issue with biking on that side. Could that also be included in that study? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Merrill?
I'll double check to see what it is, because DTI did outline sort of what, but I do recall seeing something along those lines. So I'll double check the letter that was sent out by DTI, but to Deputy Mayor Culligan's point with the striping, the passing lanes, that was also included. So I'll double check on the walking lanes / biking lanes, but that could potentially be something that's looked at as well.
Okay. So we move on.
We got to vote.
Yep,
Vote.
yep.
We got to vote on this one.
Oh, yeah. So on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Motion carried. Okay.
Okay.
You have one more?
I have two more.
Oh, two more, okay.
And hopefully
Oh, yeah.
number two will wrap number three into, this is our last end of the year meeting as a council. So I wrote down some thoughts. I sent it to Brenda. It'll be in the notes. I'll put it on Facebook later. I called it Hindsight in 2020, which I thought was clever, but I digress. So thank you, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members. I'd like to take the opportunity tonight to reflect on 2020, the challenges and successes from the beginning of this year to the end. We have faced many, many challenges together, and I'd like to applaud everyone in the community for taking care of themselves and each other. We had to change a great deal in our day-to-day lives and how we interact with friends and family. And as we head into the holidays and the beginning of 2021, I wanted to take a chance to share my thoughts on all that we've accomplished in 2020 and what lies ahead for this council and for the one elected in May. In early March, we were still reeling from the shuttering of the smelter. We were working hard to pursue other initiatives, driving down to Fredericton for meet and greets, working with different ministers at education and training opportunities, and possibly new industries to soften the losses blow. We were promised action from what was billed to be an empowered and ambitious transition committee, and although I won't fault anyone for not knowing how to move forward during a global pandemic, the promise of swift action and open communication was far from what we experienced after the shutdown. At the same time, our province did give us something. It gave us the most significant decrease in taxation transfers in the entire province, and it also confirmed that our emergency service response times were also the worst in the province. And then a virus came. As we approached it, the council and staff started to prepare for a worst-case scenario, and I would like to thank all of council, particularly Deputy Mayor Culligan, who took the lead in organizing the grocery and pharmacy deliveries at the beginning of the lockout, and Nick, as he played everyone's favorite delivery man. I am incredibly grateful that we didn't have to use our pandemic response plan that we wrote in early March, a program that would have seen us turn our arena into a field hospital and purchase large supplies if needed to ration food as deliveries became unsafe, which some pandemic plans noted that we might have to go through. So it could have been much worse. Throughout the summer, we managed to keep our meetings going on Facebook Live, and staff took split shifts to increase social distancing at the office, working some days from home and some from the office. Then we got into the color codes. And to be clear, I don't want this to come off as any kind of criticism of Dr. Russell in any way. They are doing the best job they can in likely the country's worst circumstances based on available resources. In fact, as you gather in your small groups this year, I highly encourage you to raise at least one glass to Dr. Russell and then many subsequent glasses of drinks to the men and women working in our underfunded and overcrowded hospitals and special care homes. The remote meetings came with one significant change: the absence of questions after the meeting. On one hand, I was disappointed that we could not find a way to accommodate the questions, but on the other hand, I was happy to see the stage prepared and utterly independent of what was said during the meeting grandstanding come to an end, because it was getting bad. During the summer and fall, we saw our community put back into the orange zone twice, or if you include all the times that we were told we were not in the orange zone and then that we were again, we saw our community put into the orange zone about 20 plus times. We labored the point directly to Dr. Russell, and I thank her for coming up and visiting with us again, the relevant departments and anyone else that would hear us, to understand that our traffic flow didn't go west, but rather east. By moving us to orange, they were putting us in the difficult position of either going to a known hotspot or facing prejudice and fear from our neighbors. I wanted to bring this up, not because I failed to understand that the line had to be drawn somewhere, but to communicate to this council and the next and the rest of the community to highlight that Beldoon is on its own. No savior is coming from either party in Fredericton. The report that revealed that we had the worst ambulance response times went so far as to prove that the formula that the Department of Health negotiated with the provider all but guaranteed that communities like ours would find ourselves waiting on average 10 to 15 minutes longer than our neighbors. No golden goose is coming in to give everyone in town a smelter level job also. And if someone leads you to believe that they can attract a business and guarantee jobs for people living in Beldoon, they are either lying to you or perhaps worse, have a fundamental misunderstanding of the reality that we live in. In all probability, our community has 10 years left with the power plant in current configuration. Love the preludes. The reduction in tonnage due to MB Power's move to 50% capacity has also significantly impacted the port's revenue. The essential climate policy moves will make it impossible to bring any kind of comparable to the smelter into our ports or areas in the future. So our community is at a crossroads, and I have been saying this for over 4.5 years. We can either invest in our future or burn money pretending to live in the past. But to close off, I will share with you some of my hopes for our home in 2021. Our administrative staff, who work hard and are good at their jobs, need to be encouraged to take leadership responsibility in our community. As a community, we have to be supportive and understand that our public service experiences an antagonistic relationship with its citizens because any time that they have tried to lead, we have cut them down for doing so, and this isn't right. These roles are critical to our growth and survival as a community. Leadership comes with responsibility and accountability, but you cannot have accountability without responsibility, and you can't have one without the other. I hope that people in this village will take time to consider what's best for the community in the future, as opposed to what feels fair right now. We currently sit with the second lowest tax rate in the province and a decreasing industrial core, an aging population, and Economics 101 would tell us that these are not the conditions for a thriving economy and community. In fact, these are the same factors that led Greece to collapse in 2010. And as I stated before, no one in Fredericton, Bathurst, Beresford is coming to bail out Beldoon like the Eurozone did for Greece. I know that I have continually pitched hardship or costs now to avert higher prices in the future, and I appreciate that this is not an argument that succeeds often. I hope that people in the community can take away from this dumpster fire of a year is that the world can change on a dime. Even though many of us may have been okay with the gradual decline in our community, there is no guarantee that it will remain gradual. In fact, it is easy to project that we are rapidly approaching an economic cliff. I hope that those currently around the table and those who want a seat around it in May will take these lessons to heart. This community has always been blessed to have the ability to set its own path, and through action, and more often inaction, it has. I cannot stress enough that where we are is not a situation that promotes growth or even medium-term survival. But we are strong, hardworking, industrious, and genuinely compassionate to the struggles we all face, despite the trash on Facebook. All we need to do is collectively acknowledge the reality of where we find ourselves, and as the world prepares to reinvent itself after a once-in-a-century event, maybe, just maybe, it's finally time that we did the same. Thank you to everybody on council for all the years we've been together, putting up with me. Merry Christmas to everybody in the community, and hopefully 2021 is better. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
And the last one, I'll just be very brief. I went through the presentations. They were unable, I'll introduce it a little bit. It's on the rock thing that we're going to talk about a little bit later, which is the rural broadband system. I went through the presentation and they were unwilling to give me the Excel sheet, which kind of raised a red flag for me. But looked at some of the base numbers that they were using in their report. And although there's questions, but I think the initiative, and very consistently with what I just spent 10 minutes of your time reading, there is potential inside of a rural broadband network. They aren't the only providers anymore. It's actually launching with the announcement of a lot of government investment coming in the next 2 years. But if there's, I think we can leave it till the CEO Lee's comments, but I wasn't 100% sure it was going to be on there. I think it's a opportune investment, but we need to definitely do our due diligence on it. But I would encourage everyone, don't be sticker shocked by the price tag. It is what it is, but think 5-10 years in the future and what the return on that could be. All right, that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Sandon. Okay. Move on to administration reports and CAO Lee.
Okay, I'll try my best to get through this as effectively as I can. So my first item is the residential grant report. We had one request that came in, so the grant amount that will be issued is $1,085.
Okay, so we'll need motion 21-172, a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move that in accordance with the Village of Baldoon Economic Development Bylaw number ED-01-2019 and the residential grant policy. Council accepts CAO Lee's recommendation and approve the following grant, Tammy Barton, in the amount of $1,085.
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Lillian. Questions?
Where is Tammy Barton taking up residence? Town site?
Yeah, I don't, it's in your package there, it's in the agenda, it's
Okay.
included in it, but yeah, it's in
yeah.
on Shiller Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Motion carried. Next is the motion 21-173.
Just before we get into that, just real briefly, so everything is pretty straightforward there. There was one item that came in as a donation request for Paul Devricks that was being facilitated through the Super Village Trailblazer Club. I was able to connect with the club. One of the things that they did sort of mention to me was that the money that goes to Mr. Devricks, they don't exactly know what it is that he's using it for, and they just want to, we've had lots of discussion about, their property and modifications to it, and I do understand that Paul's very well aware, so, there wouldn't be anything going on without them knowing, but they did suggest that they might, have a conversation with Paul Devericks, just to ensure that they kind of have an idea of where the money's going to. So that was sort of a stipulation that they were hoping that council would be okay with. I think that they've got a good communication system going on over there. So it's not necessarily something that involves the municipality. There was an acknowledgement that they would facilitate the request. However, they did give us a quick brief heads up that they wouldn't mind having some conditions applied to that.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Okay, motion 21-173, a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move that the Social and Environmental CAO Grant Report of December 2020 be accepted as presented and the following recommendations approved. $288 to Beldoon Volunteer Fire Department for Dusty Sneakers Journals. $750 to Super Village Trailblazer Snowmobile Club for Paul Devereaux for Jacket River Gorge upkeep. $250 Northern Moose AAA U15 for Cade McCurdy. $250 for Les Cadets Royaux. $100 for New Brunswick Environmental Network for the Great Minds Think Outside program. $100 for the Kidney Foundation of Canada, $100 for Multiple Sclerosis of Canada, $100 for IWK Foundation, and Kids Help Phone, $100.
Okay, questions?
Could we add to the last three, the IWK and the, was it multiple sclerosis? And there was a third one there too at the end. Could we kick that up a little bit? Would we be allowed to kick that up a little bit? And would there be any objections to kicking that up a little bit, maybe to 200 or 250?
Do we
No,
have the
they
money
were all
in
for
the?
100.
We would have the money in the budget. I believe that Brenda and I took a quick look at it before the report. Because of our policy, we kind of had it outlined that if they did have the means to other funding, if it was a national association or something like that, that we kind of had. But I believe that there would be budget to do, if you're only looking at those three, taking them from 100 to 150, we'd have the capacity of doing that.
But the policy reads the 100, correct?
I don't know if the policy specifies the 100, the 250 is the cap, and our sort of internal process was, if it's specific to Beldoon or programs where that would benefit the Beldoon specifically, then we had it at 250, and anything that was less than that, then if they had the capability of reaching out to a wider spectrum or provincial or federal, then it was $100 was generally the way that we would operate it. But
Yeah. So if we wanted to change that, we'd have to change our policy. So it should stay as it is. Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, fortunately, we all have the luxury to commit to those organizations with our own funds as well. And so therefore, I'm quite content with the numbers that we're using.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, my next item is for the garbage truck tender that went out. So this tender went out. It was placed publicly on NBON. Unfortunately, we only received one bid in. I'm going to touch a little bit later on our asset management policy and sort of the numbers and figures that are associated with that. So the bid that did come in is not too far off from what we expected it. However, I do know that, from previous, processes that we've gone through, council usually likes to have a second, option, at least to be able to make sure that they're comparable. However, in this case, there was only one received. So I'll need direction from council either to award the tender, and if not, then to some direction issued to staff on how you'd like to proceed.
Yeah, well, we followed the rules that we have to. The fact that only one bidder bid was, it gives us the vehicle that we need. And so my recommendation that we pass the motion and move forward with it.
Assuming that CAO Lee is comfortable with the bid that was submitted.
So from my perspective, just so you're aware, I did have a conversation with Chris Kingston and with Public Works. It was very specific. The tender was very specific. We did have a lot of requests from, other, manufacturers and different brand types. So there was a lot of questions that did come in. This is something comparable, but would you like this? Public Works really wanted something very specific. What's great about this is that the servicing was a big thing for us, and that was something that was it cost us quite a lot on previous vehicles. The servicing is being done nearby. We don't have to travel, down to one of the major city centers to do this. So that was a big plus for us. So that was really well received by the Mr. Kingston and Cameron as well. I'm not feeling any discomfort in the bidder or the price or the product that they've put forward. Just the one thing is that it was only the one bid.
Well,
Okay, so we need motion 21-174. Move in a seconder, please.
I'll move that council, as per recommendation of Chris Kingston, award the tender for latest model rear load refuse Pacarto? Oh, Spanish, little Spanish, that's all
Packard
right.
too.
The only bidder, Saunders Equipment Limited, for the amount of $282,200 plus HST, and purchase of extended warranty for an additional 2 years at an additional cost of $3,025 plus HST.
Second by Lillian. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, my next item is simply to go to tender for the 2-ton truck that we currently have in Public Works. We were asked previously at previous meetings to be able to demonstrate, how this item falls into the capital asset management plan. I sent out a rather my patented long-winded emails there that I completely understand might take kind of a working session for us to pick through. What I was really trying to demonstrate with that email is that we are it's very the whole process is we just went through that just for Public Works vehicles. We segregated the fire vehicles, and it's really involved. And what I'm kind of hoping is that it's really involved because we're building on it, and then we're kind of pushing that snowball up the hill. And then when we get it to the other side, it's going to go. But what I wanted to be able to demonstrate to council, specifically because, that request did come in, is that we're starting to put that plan into play. We're going to continue to build on it. Maybe it's because I'm really involved in the process right now, but I can absolutely see the merit in this. I find that if we can continue to flesh out the plan the way that, in the spreadsheets that I was able to send out to council, it would make the budgeting process so much more comprehensive and not necessarily easier, but it really reinforces the decisions that are being made. Not to mention that the whole idea of it is that it's a plan, right? And then that's also helping both myself and my staff to be able to look at these things. And as an example, the Zamboni was not on my radar in any capacity until we started getting into this. And then when I seen how this plan works, and the Zamboni was one of the examples that I used when I sent the email out to council. Right now, it's functioning fine. We have it graded a certain way, but we fully acknowledge that this is not, it's not going to last us another 12 years. So that helps us to, lay that out, and just going through that process, we could see, okay, if wherever we had that into the plan, 2022 or 2023, that helps us out. That helps us out. That lays it out for us. We have things that we know. It helps us to spend more appropriately now. If we know that we're going to be replacing that, that's part of the plan in 3 or 4 or 5 years. It helps us to make the decisions now on how we manage the maintenance and repair. So if you have any questions on the asset management plan, again, this motion is really just to go to tender for that truck. But I wanted to make sure that we had some of those vehicles in Public Works into a plan so that council could maybe get a better idea of sort of how that plan works.
Okay, thank you, Landon. Okay, so we need motion 21-175. A mover and a seconder, please.
I move that in accordance with NB Procurement Act Regulation, Beldoon Council authorize the commencement of tender process and publicly advertise the tender on NB Opportunity Network, NBON, for Beldoon 1-ton truck.
Questions?
Is it a 1-ton or a 2-ton?
1 ton.
Our current one is a 2-ton, but
Yeah.
they're looking to replace it with a 1-ton. Yeah.
Question, I'm looking at the list, the planned capital additions. Did we come to a landing spot on, just the regular pickups? Are we gonna continue to pay mileage out, or are we gonna invest in our own?
I don't think that I mean, if you wanted to have like a directive issue to staff, I think right now we're operating sort of as we always have been. Yeah, no, I think that as of right now, that's sort of what we're, but again, on that, it kind of falls into, there might be some reports that I might be able to put together to demonstrate on why that, one way or the other. If we take a look at, repair costs and maintenance costs versus mileage, that might be something that I can throw together with some directive from council.
Yeah, I think just as it was a point of contention during the budget process on what would serve the village best going forward is whether or not having a fleet or being reliant on one vehicle from an employee. I honestly, it's not a big deal, but I would like to see the ideas the idea fleshed out. If we're buying a 1-ton utility vehicle, I mean, one of the reasons that the 2-ton got worn down as much is because if our public works director was driving his truck to a site and the other guys needed to get somewhere, even if it didn't need the 2-ton on site, that's what they were taking, right? So we upped mileage on that quite considerably if they're driving, down and all they had in the back was weed whacker. So I would love to see some strategy considerations coming back. I think if you look at the communities around us, they all have their own pickups. And I imagine that is very much the reason.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, Sen, and I think what we really, as a council, what we really need to do here is early in the new year, have a working session where Landon has that information for us and we take a look at that. Not just the vehicles and the pickup trucks, but the other vehicles as well. And the way our works department works and everything else that goes along with it. I mean, the other equipment and, what needs to be done and what doesn't. And I think that would take a half-day work session, or a long evening work session. And I think we should really plan that for early in the new year. Okay. Any other questions?
I'd just like to add one thing. Couple of months ago, I believe it was a couple of months ago, maybe in September, I think the motion that was brought forward that led to this, where Councillor Cloran did a very good job in articulating the need for a more expansive capital asset management plan. And I think at that time, we talked about the need to develop it more, to really get into developing this plan. And I thought about this the other day, that, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the need to review how important it was that we needed to start reviewing our policies and our bylaws. Well, we only have 3 months left. 3 good months left in terms of this council. This council is going to change somewhat. So we may not be able to do the work on the policies and bylaws that we need to do. But I thought if we could leave the next council a really good structure for this plan, then that would be something that I think in the next 3 months that we could aim for, and that we could be proud of, that we were able to take this plan and get it developed to the point where they could step in. We may not be able to get to that point, but we can certainly start putting it together so that the new council comes in, they have something to work with. Because it's very, very important. And, I want to acknowledge that what you spoke of a couple of months ago was absolutely true. And we need to start getting this done.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay, any other questions? On the motion?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor, just one point. On your capital plan worksheet, just to note, it is not a Zamboni, it's an Olympia.
And there was an incident where Zamboni did correct. I don't know if you've seen that, but there was not a Zamboni product. I should know better.
Which is the one that burned?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Motion carried. Okay.
Okay, my next item is we discussed this at the committee of whole meeting, so I won't spend much time on it, but there was a hub controller system that needs to be in place to have the interior swipe cards be made accessible for this building. So I've received a revised quote from Levesque and McIntyre that's directly to us instead of us going through the general contractor. So we would need a motion to have the purchase and installation of the hub controllers.
Okay, so we need motion 21-176. A mover and a seconder, please.
I move that councils approve the purchase of installation of hub controllers from Levesque and McIntyre Electric Company Limited for the amount of $4,610 plus HST.
Any questions? On the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, so I've skipped over the MOU, lease agreement with the RCMP. Again, we're going to aim to have that on the agenda for the January council meeting. My next item is for Rock Networks and the application that they require the resolution that they would require to apply on our behalf for the Universal Broadband Fund. My apologies that this did come out late, but I was only able to connect with legal a little bit later on, and there was some changes to the resolution wording that was recommended by Andre. I did review that with Sylvie Malance and with Nova Communications, Rock Networks. There was nothing in there that prohibited them in any capacity, and Andre felt that it would give us a little more security from our end. So I did print up a copy of that and provide it to each councillor. If there's if council decides to move forward with that motion, then there is the revised wording there.
Okay, on that, we need the resolution 21-177, and not the one that's on your agenda, but the printed one that you have a copy of. Need a mover and a seconder, please.
Mr. Mayor, whereas council has received an unsolicited proposal to provide broadband to its citizens, and whereas council wishes to encourage the provision of a much-needed services and utilities to its citizens, be it resolved that council will review the funding application to the Universal Broadband Fund UBF program, and that depending on said review, Belledune may allow Rock Networks to submit an application on its behalf to the UBF program, but only after agreeing to it in writing by way of an MOU. Be it also resolved that if the application is successful and after conducting further due diligence exercise with regards to the design, build, and operation of the network so that it conforms to the authority or to its authority under the Local Governance Act and any other applicable legislative or procurement requirements, Rock Networks will be appointed to design, build, and be operator of the network with payment contingent on funding availability.
I'll second that.
Okay, any questions?
I just have something to say on that. Again, we're at the end of the year, making a big decision. And my concern on this is like, if this comes through and we don't get the money, we can back out of this at any time. So we're not binded to go forward in the future. We're just asking, giving them permission to go ask for that money. We're giving Brenda permission also to go look to see if there's any money there. But I also think that the provincial government should do a share on this. You know, like, we're up north, we're kind of forgotten, and we all know that. But, you know, like, why wouldn't the provincial government come in and help us? They're promising us better internet, better everything. So that is my concern right now with this. And I, before it goes out also, I'd like to see the survey be out to people to see how much interest is in there, so before we move forward, and also a presentation that the people would understand exactly what it is. Because as you know, Sandon, you said it yourself a couple of months ago, I did not know what broadband was. And I'm sure 85 to 90% of the people are like me, that they don't know what broadband internet and what it is. So that would be going forward, that I would like to be done before the final decision would be done, and there'd be another vote coming across the table to finalize it and for it to go forward. So what I'm asking, I guess, is there going to be another vote in the future to vote for this to go through?
Yeah, we'd have to have, because this is the go and
I don't want going
and do
into
the survey and get the information that we need and check to see if funding is
So-
available.
With the survey, and if we see that the people in the area is not interested and that we don't have, because they were talking, if we have a 40% people interested and we're going to be making $300,000 a year. I also know we lost $540,000, and if we lose another industry in the area, that means we're losing more money. Are we going to, and in the next 2 years, we need to pay, if we did borrow money on that interest, we have to pay a percentage on the interest until we start paying the finished product and starting the money hauling into us or coming into us. So that's all my concern, looking at the budget numbers and all that. So that's why I just want to make sure that by voting yesterday to get this started, that it's not the final vote for it to go right across.
Okay, Nick?
Just for clarification purposes, after the first be it resolved, that council will review the funding application. So this funding application is drawn up by whom?
I know Nova will be responsible to draft the application,
So
and then
we look at it,
they will, we gotta look at that, and we determine whether, yes, we're gonna send that to the federal government or not. And we'll determine whether we did, after they do the application. But before we can do the application, we need to be able to have a case as to, you know, is this a viable operation?
Right.
And that, part of that survey will tell us that. That's why we need the survey results. And then that, if we have the case, then we'll say, yes, okay, we're going to submit this to the federal government. Even though we submit it, we may not get all the money. So if we don't get the money that we need, we still can't go forward with it. So if we get the funding approved, we also need to get, Brenda's checking on how we get funding approved from, you know, to borrow money to do this, and we have to have that approved as well. And then, as Tracy had said, I think there is maybe a possibility we may get some federal funding or some provincial funding as well, because they do have some money for broadband. So that'll reduce our amount by whatever amount we get from them. So it's a number facet funding thing that we have to look at, but we have to start somewhere.
but I understand that, I think I heard or read someplace that the deadline for an application for funding is in February, is that right?
The 15th of February, yeah. That's why we gotta, if we're gonna do it, we gotta start moving on it now.
But are we planning on having a survey completed in advance of that date?
Yep. The survey's ready to go. Yeah, Landon can speak to that, but he's got the survey ready to go. He can have the survey on our webpage tomorrow.
They showed us, yeah.
Okay.
I think this is only the second time in the last 4.5 years that I'm going to say this, but I completely agree with Sandon. Don't anybody have a heart attack.
It is Christmas after all.
It is Christmas, I'm being generous. My heart's grown 3 sizes. No, I do, I completely agree with him. I think that we really have, it's a big buy-in, but I think we have to look deep into the future to see where this could take us. If nothing else, and I was saying this in the presentations, which I think Rock gave really comprehensive, well-planned, and well-executed presentations to us. And like I said during the presentation, you know, when people ask me, what am I thankful for? People are always saying, you know, oh, COVID and lockdown and whatever, what are you thankful for? Family and health and friends, and I'm thankful for all that. But I am so thankful for technology and for the internet, because without that, I wouldn't have been able to keep up with family and friends and keep my mental health. So, and work and do so much, you know, so much else. And so when I see something like this project just really makes me excited to think of the benefits that it could offer Belledune in the future. If not, you know, COVID, so many people are working from home now, and so many businesses have come to the understanding and the conclusion that they don't need to have brick and mortar buildings anymore to run their businesses. So many people are working from home, and so many people set up new, smaller businesses, private businesses, run from their home. And if you don't have dependable internet, no one can do that. And again, with COVID, I think a lot of people, we're seeing it just in Belledune, a lot of people are moving out of the city for safety reasons. I mean, let's face it, Atlantic Canada is very, very safe in terms of COVID. And they're running away from the rat race of the city. They're moving more towards rural. And I'm hoping, I see a resurgence in rural communities with people being able to run smaller businesses. And really the foundation for all of that is good internet. So I really think that it's worth the cost. And I'm really looking forward to the survey that they're getting ready to put out. They showed us an example of it, and there's a lot of space on that so that people can give their feedback and tell us exactly what they really want. And I'm hoping that a lot of people will participate in the survey and let us know. So yeah, like I said, I think this is a fantastic project. So don't get a big head, Sandon, because I agreed with you.
Oh, I don't want to step on any of that, because I should probably just leave that where it is. I couldn't, Jack's going through some sleep regression, so I couldn't stay on the presentation the entire time. So I'd like, if it's possible, to get a copy of that Excel sheet, if you want to reach out to Sylvie. Just because I was looking at the different price points, and they are competitive in terms of coverage. There's nothing there that would jump out and say, well, why would I leave Rogers or Bell? You would, because first of all, the pricing is very similar, but one of the big things that I noticed is that it's a contained fiber loop, which means that, and I know I'm getting into jargon, but the best internet you can get from Rogers right now gives you 1 gigabyte download. So that's the best you can get. You're paying $120 a month easy, and that's if they gave you a special deal when you signed on. What they're offering for business clients is 10 gigabytes per second download with close to 1 up. That's better than the fiber up and down the street. Just, you know, my dad has a company that did programming and stuff for years, and when we had to do pushes, which meant pushing things online to run, we set it to upload on Friday morning, and I would go in and check it Friday evening around 9 or 10 o'clock, and then go the next day in the morning because the upload speed was so slow. So, I mean, that's technology companies, that's that kind of innovation that you get. But also, if we want to even talk more traditional industries, we have the ability with such reliable and fast internet to enter into the supply chain at different points, right? We could have a carpentry manufacturer where, we do we create the bed slats for IKEA, but because we have this rapid feed internet service, we're actually able to report to Stockholm in the blink of an eye, right? It opens up a lot of possibilities. You don't have to be a coder or anything like that. You can be a carpenter, and now your world's just gotten that much bigger. So I think one of the important things from the survey is that I can definitely foresee some apprehension about the village spending money to create a service that a lot of people still have already and are moderately happy with. But the important thing is that, A, it doesn't service everybody in our community. Wish Sharon was here for this. We should have just invited her. She could have sat alone just for this one. And it doesn't service everybody. We do have lots of room to expand back into Mitchell, back into Archibald for people who want to, get out of the hustle and bustle in the country. But internet connection is a huge determinant. For someone my age, I'm 33, turning 34, that would be a huge thing. I wouldn't move back into Archibald, even if I loved the woods, because I need connection to the internet. We need to really work on the communication of all this. I went on their pilot site today. It's okay, but if we're serious about pursuing this, I think it's probably a virtual town hall or a socially distanced couple of sessions where people can register and come in, and that way we can control the flow of people. Because I'd hate for this to crash just because people didn't understand what we were trying to do. And I don't mean that in the sense that people can't understand it. It's just if you get the wrong idea about something and nobody's there to correct you, or there's no information there to easily correct it, you kind of go down a rabbit hole. But I'm going to shut up and take Tracy's acknowledgement as a win.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? If not, on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay? One nay, Paul. Motion carried.
Okay, my next 2 points I'll run through rather quickly. I did touch base quickly with Councillor Darvin-Vorten on these. So the Schlur Regional Service Commission, I did request that they provide some sort of an update or a report or some sort of a summary specific to the dangerous and sightly premises, the open files that we currently have, the future files that we anticipate seeing, and the status of each one. They did acknowledge my request with a phone call. I've not received anything in writing yet. However, they did say that they don't see that this is an issue. So I would anticipate that beginning in January, we're going to have some sort of a report or something from them. I mean, if we can do an in-person presentation, that would be great as well. But their intent is to be able to provide an update monthly on each file that they have open and where that stands. And, more importantly for me, I just want to see what else is on the horizon that's going to be coming down the pipe.
If I could just make one remark, I'm still astounded that in some communities like Macadam, it can happen so quickly, and here it takes years to achieve a satisfactory result. So, and this is the same province and the same rules apply, doesn't matter where you live. I all but had a motion ready for us to hire an arsonist this evening, but
On my next item with the housing subsidy program, so again, I've connected with Nick on this. I'd suggest that maybe I'd like to set a deadline, and I can connect with Brenda on it. We can take a look. We've seen some other examples of other communities that are rolling out the same types of programs that we have here. So there might be some things that we can build off of there. But I might make a suggestion that for the January meeting, we sort of establish establish an internal deadline to have some sort of a amendment or at least an idea ready for council on what it was that you'd like to see for the housing subsidy program. And I do recognize that the intent with this amendment is to, broaden this so that it's a little bit more enticing for families, for parents with younger kids. So we'll do a little bit of legwork on that, and we'll have something ready for the January meeting.
Thank you, CAOD. And I think, there seems to be a trend towards, I think we could be working towards a wave of newcomers coming east, because it was yesterday or maybe it was this morning that I heard a report on CBC radio that for the first time that they can remember, there are more people moving from Ontario to New Brunswick than vice versa. So part of it's already been achieved. They're not necessarily coming to northern New Brunswick in droves, so our work is not finished, but any modification that we make to our policy, I think, is only going to help us. And I think we as a community can prepare to reap the benefits of it. And I feel more optimistic than ever, and maybe someday we'll have a reason to say, thank heavens for COVID, because it's what's driving a lot of them here.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. Okay, we'll move on to Clerk Treasurer Cormier, the financial reports.
Okay, I'll do the utility operating fund report from November the 1st to November the 30th. We had a bank balance carried forward in October of $22,922.12. We had deposits of $3,725.36. We had e-payments of $250 and interest of $13.27 for total deposits of $3,988.63. We had checks that were issued from November the 1st to the 30th of $354.85, and we had a direct transfer payment for $10,897.07. Checks that were outstanding in October cleared $267.53, and checks still outstanding in November, $327.27. The current account balance at the end of November was $15,718.57. The capital reserve account balance was $40,859.30. Operating reserve account balance was $6,871.95, and the trust account balance was $28,454.97. We had no outstanding accounts payable, and on the accounts receivable, we had for the July to September residential, $150, the October to December residential, $950, and the September industrial, $3,622.10. In the general operating fund, for the same time, November the 1st to November the 30th, we had carried forward from October $695,659.95, direct deposits of $7,305.63, e-transfers of $1,150, direct, where am I here? I'm sorry, I'm off on this here, e-payments, okay. The province of New Brunswick for $412,434. Direct payment from the province of New Brunswick, $57.50. And also arena cash deposits of $2,739. Arena e-transfer payments of $111. HST rebate of $48,568.29. MB Municipal Finance Corporation, the debenture of $1 million, less the cost of debenture, there was $989,958.19, and interest revenue of $644.90, for total deposits of $1,462,968.51. We had checks issued from November the 1st to the 30th of $416,503.04. accounts payable direct payments of $4,228.71, e-transfer payments of $2,008.33.70, direct payment service New Brunswick $10, direct payment work health and safety $2,291.39, bank charges of $69.69, interest on interim financing of $1,004.10, and MasterCard payments of $495.42. We had checks in October that had cleared $79,097.48. Checks that were still outstanding by the end of November, $35,870.44, leaving the current account balance of $1,687,965.37. The cash capital reserve account balance was $1,937,349.27. The gas tax balance was $233,964.22. We had accounts payable of $97,150.15 at the end of November. On the receivables for the 2019, we had $115, and in 2020, we have $23,439.60. And we have due to the gas tax fund of $30,597.
Okay, so we need motion 21-178. A mover and a seconder, please.
I move that the financial report be accepted as presented and the accounts payable be paid.
Second.
Questions? On the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Motion carried. Okay. Next is our financial year end projections. So we have what? We have three motions there. So motion 21-179, a mover and a seconder, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that Beldoon open a general operating reserve fund and transfer $200,000 from the 2020 general operating fund.
I'll second it.
Questions?
I can't open up any of the attachments tonight, and I didn't want to shut off my computer. So I'm just wondering if somebody can tell me what these are for, or why we're removing the money? For each one? The 200,000 transfer from the 20, okay.
Yeah, we have a
Or
surplus.
transfer?
It's the
Okay,
projection.
okay, I
Transfer one
got
fund to
it.
the
I
other.
can't open any of the documents, that's why I don't like,
Okay.
okay,
Any other questions?
maybe when I get home.
On the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against, nay. Motion carried. Next one is motion 21-180.
Okay.
Mover and a seconder, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that $700,000 be transferred from the 2020 general operating fund to the general capital reserve fund.
I'll second it.
Questions?
I actually do. Just before we put this in the capital reserve fund, I know we've had discussions in the past about possibly getting invoiced for work now. That's gonna be done later in order to spend, like, instead of it all going into the reserve fund right now. Do we have anything outstanding that we can pay for now?
Not really. We've kind of, yeah. Do you wanna
And
comment on it?
actually, our accounting goes on an accrual basis. So it wouldn't, like, you can't really do that because it's gotta be accrued now and done
Yeah.
now. You couldn't pay for something for that's gonna get done next year.
But
kind of thing.
the accrual is based on work finished, or is it work, like, we could, I mean, you can structure contracts that 50% is paid up front prior to anything happening, right? I mean, anyway, it's in the capital fund, so I mean, we can always use
Get
it,
it
but.
back.
Yeah, it'll be in there. Okay, any other questions? On the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Motion carried. Next is motion 21-181.
I move that 13,000 be transferred from the 2020 Utility Operating Fund to the Utility Capital Reserve Fund.
Questions? On the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Motion carried. Okay. Next is our motion 21-182 to cancel the committee of whole meeting for January the 4th. Because of the way the holidays work, we wouldn't have our things ready for that. So we need motion 21-182, a mover and a seconder, please.
I move that the Committee of Whole Council meeting of January 4th, 2021 be canceled.
Questions?
I am very surprised that Councillor Divenborden wasn't the one to move that motion. At the very least, second it.
Paul?
Do we have a fire department meeting that week as well? Do we have one on the 6th scheduled for January 6th? And if we do, is it going to affect that one as well?
It probably wouldn't if we have it for January the 6th because staff is back to work on, but no, I don't see one for, I think it's the Jaguar, the fire department is, yeah, I don't have it right here, but I think it's the 14th. I think it's at the, it's always on a Thursday.
Okay.
So
Is the idea to move this one to the
Thursday, so
11th?
it would be the 14th if it's the second.
Is the idea to move this one to the 11th and then keep our regular meeting?
No, we're
next
not
week?
going to have it. We'll just
Just
go
period.
directly to our
Okay.
regular meeting. Okay, on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Motion carried. Tracy, yeah. Tracy second. Whoops, I lost it here. Hold on, make it back. Okay. The next one is the Industrial Engine Preventive Maintenance Service Agreement. Oh, that's for the generator at 2330 Main Street. So we need motion 21-183. A mover and a seconder, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that the Beldoon Council accepts the Industrial EPG Engine Preventative Maintenance Service Agreement for the term of 1 year with Tormont Cat for the generator at 2330 Main Street for the amount of $2,290 plus HST, and that the mayor and clerk sign the agreement.
Questions?
Do we not have, is it not possible to have one contract for both generators? Because we have one
I think it's
here.
because they come due at two different times. So we
Okay.
have two separate contracts, because they are two separate generators.
I'll check into that a little bit more. I'll talk to Cameron with Public Works.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just,
we could check it and do it, see. We could probably combine them, I mean, it wouldn't matter much. Okay, any other questions? On the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Motion carried. Okay, we move into correspondence, please, Brenda.
In the correspondence we had the library, Beldoon Library report for October and November, the Restigouche SPCA report for November, the Restigouche Crime Stoppers report, that would have been a December one, Minister Department of Environment and Local Government, the Federal Gas Tax 2019-2023, that was the approval of our plan. Minister Fleming, Department of Justice and Public Safety, Police Delivery Service Review. Minister Holland, NRED new website, and the Beldoon Port Authority to Mr. Loger regarding ambulance New Brunswick. We had the invitations to the Lieutenant Governor's New Year's levy, which was provided to the mayor, but it's a drive-through event this year. A thank you is Rose Bully for the Remembrance Day meal, the Royal Canadian Legion for the Remembrance Day meals that were provided to the veterans and their spouses. Shlour Bay Watershed, thank you for the donation of $1,000 that council had made this year. And the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program, thank you for the 2020 year income tax program and a certificate that they present as well to the municipality as a host.
Mr. Mayor, just make sure you get a picture of when you're doing that drive-through for the New Year's levy, because I'd just like to see it, I guess, to see how that works.
Yeah, but if you think I'm gonna drive this Friday to go to a drive-through event, you better have another thought coming. Okay, before we close, I would just like to say to council, thank you for the past year. You know, this has been a very trying year, to say the least, with all the things that happened and COVID on top of it all. It's been very, very, very trying, and I really appreciate the effort that council put in. You know, we worked together, we worked well, we got the things done that really needed to be done, and we don't always all agree all the time, but in the end, we come to a compromise, and I think that's very important in the way we operate and the way things happen. So a big thank you, and a thank you to all the citizens out there for all the work they have done and all the events that they have attended and we have. I know it's been a really tough year, and I have to really commend our citizens in Beldoon for everything that was done and how people all came together and checked on their neighbors and made sure things were done. And with that, I would just like to say a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And let's keep up the good work and keep everybody safe and continue. So thank you very much. And with that said, we need motion 21-184.
Just prior, Mr. Mayor, just prior to the adjournment, if I could, we had fairly lengthy discussion on the broadband internet, and when it came down to a vote, I noticed that Councillor Arsenault voted actually against the motion, and so I'm somewhat intrigued by having a conversation in which everybody participates except the person who votes against it, and Councillor Arsenault is a very intelligent man, so I'm, well, at the very least, intrigued as to what provoked his nay vote.
Well, actually, Councillor Davenport, I thought that question was going to come from Councillor Killorn. I thought I dodged that bullet, to be honest with you. But I will say, and I was kind of prepared for that, to be honest with you. On June 15th, when the first motion in relation to this issue came forth, I voted the same way, and I gave my reasons at that point. I think I was the only council member, to be honest with you, who explained their vote that night. I went and checked the minutes this morning, but because we have abbreviated minutes now, my explanation at that point wasn't given. But I gave a detailed one that evening, and it still remains the same. Now, I would say that it is more instinctual than it is anecdotal. But even one that's instinctual is legitimate. And so I will just say that I hope that I am wrong about this and will be the first to admit that I am wrong. I agree with the concept. I agree with the need. But I have some reservations, and I will just let it play out. We're going to have a final vote on this, and I guarantee you I will not be quiet that evening. So stay tuned. My reasons, I'm not shy. I'll give a full and detailed explanation that evening. You can count on it. And by the way, I would say to Mayor Noel, thank you. That's very gracious of you to say those words, and a good way to end the evening. If Nick would just let it go.
Councillor Arsenault, if your thoughts didn't matter to me, I would not have asked you for your for the reasons why you voted the way you did. So, with that said, I move the adjournment of the meeting at 8:54. And Mr. Mayor, you should always have the last word, but anyway, just didn't work out today.
I don't need the last word. Seconder, please. I'll second it. On the motion, All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Motion carried. Okay, we're finished. Thank you. Thank you out there, everyone. Let's see how we do this.